and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be talking about Ken Griffin. Now, if you're like most magicians, you're going to say, who's Ken Griffin? Let me tell you why Ken Griffin is important to me. This book right here, it's called Illusion Show Know-How. When I was a kid, by the way, this book was published in 1972. I was 12 years old when the book was published. I was hanging out at the Yogi Magic Mart downtown. This was before the Doug Henning era. So the big show, there was a revolution. If you guys didn't live through that, you don't know. When Doug Henning hit the scene, everything changed. There was opportunity for everyone. But before Doug Henning, it was difficult. It was challenging. How were you going to do this? Well, Ken Griffin was successful. And I remember talking to Phil Thomas and saying how I wanted to do this, how I aspired to do the Houdini substitution trunk, and I aspired to perform the zigzag girl illusion, and I wanted to do a levitation. And I'm 12 years old, I'm 13, I'm 14 years old. And Phil Thomas says to me, I want you to read this book, because this book will show you the life that you say you want to live. And after you read this book, if you want to live that life, I'll help you get there. But I want you to read the book, and I want you to visualize this is what your life is going to be. And I bought the book from Phil. I don't know what I paid for it, but I bought the book from Phil. And here I am, I'm in school, and we had a study hour in school. We also had a lunch break. And all the other kids, we go to the library for study hour. All the other kids are studying algebra, and they're studying physics, and they're studying their textbooks and so on, and preparing for tests. And I'm reading this, man. I'm reading, and I'm sitting there. I'm reading this page per page. I'm reading it word by word. And I'm just filled with life and excitement. And Phil Thomas thought I would read about the complexities of producing an illusion show, about the challenges of producing an illusion show. He thought I'd read this and go, oh man, that's not for me. But you know what? I sat there picturing myself as Ken, picturing myself going into a school auditorium, setting up my illusion show, doing my illusion show. I pictured myself doing that, and it got me through school, man. It got me through school. This was my life. This was the life I wanted. And so that's why I'm sharing this with you. I have said many times on this video, the reason I do this vlog is to share the things that are in my heart, to share my dreams, my hopes, my ambitions, to share the things I've acquired over 50 years of doing magic, to put it out there. I told you, my mother passed in 2015. My dad developed Alzheimer's in 2017, and I realized we all have a limited time on this earth. We all have a limited time. So what am I doing? And one of the things I decided to do was to do this vlog, to share my heart, to share the things that are important. And this book was incredibly important to me as a child. Growing up, I wanted to be Ken. I wanted to be the illusionist. The person who inspired me to be a magician more than any other single person was George Gable. And George Gable had the big show. And I wanted the big show too. Phil Thomas was a good friend of George Gable's. He knew that George Gable wasn't making a living at it. He knew that George Gable was running a costume shop downtown Baltimore. And he just thought I'd be overwhelmed by the task. But you know what? I was inspired. I was inspired by the task. So, listen, I decided I wanted to do this. I wanted to present this book to you. And I thought, I'm going to try to do some research on Ken Griffin and find out who he was and what his background was, and share some of that with you. As I mentioned, this book was written in 1972. This article, this is Genie Magazine, February 1961, so it's a good 10 years, 11 years before this book is written. Look at that. Oh man, I read this. I printed it out and I read it. By the way, if you subscribe to Genie Magazine, you go to your current issue, digital, now online, go to your current issue. Over here in the margin, you can click on past issues and go to just about any past issue there is. I found out that the Ken Griffin Show was reviewed in Genie. By the way, I was hoping to get biographical information, but this entire thing, and it's 3 solid pages, is a blow-by-blow description of the Ken Griffin Show. And it's excellent. I mean, it really paints a vivid picture, but there's no biography whatsoever. So I was a little disappointed in the article from that perspective. As far as the Magicpedia and the Magic Cafe and the other resources you might think would be helpful, they were not. There's not a lot of biography there either. What I did find, there is an article. I'm going to put the link down below because I'm not going to share the entire article. It is by Elk Track Studio. Now you might think, well, why are they interested in Ken? Well, Ken, prior to becoming a magician, he was a master leather worker. Yeah, he was a decorated master leather worker, and apparently he made so much money as a leather worker that he was able to fund his magic show and get it off the ground. Once he got the show going, he was able to convert to doing the show full time. But he didn't start doing professional magic small and build the show up. He was a leather worker. And by the way, he and this was all in the article, he worked for a company in Hollywood with Ed Bohlin, who was known as the saddle maker to the stars. And apparently Ken created some leather pieces for Clark Gable, Robert Taylor, Sammy Davis Jr., Gene Autry, and Roy Rogers. Now they were making saddles primarily. So according to this article, now according to this article, he's a magician who's also interested in leatherworks. According to this article, he's a leather worker who's also interested in magic. So it's kind of interesting, the perspectives. But according to the article, he was able to fund his show through his leather work. And by the way, it's really nice if you're going to do magic full time, if you have a skill like this to fall back on, at least for a little while you get your reputation up and going. And Ken, the way Ken did the show, he went in, he had sponsorships, he went in and he did shows in school auditoriums and things like this. He did not have his own he did have his own trailer, but he didn't perform out of it. He did shows on stages that varied from town to town, and he had often sponsorships for those shows. Now he was featured on the Ed Sullivan Show, and he did perform 8 USO tours as a magician. So I think that's amazing. It's incredible. Another thing that's described in this book that I appreciate about some of the earlier showmen, his children were, a lot of the times the costume trunk, one of the drawers of the costume trunk doubled as a bed for a baby, that his family had. So I mean, that's the way the old showmen did it, man. That they toured with their families. Their kids were in the show. But anyway, I'm going to put the link to that article. You can take a look if you want. It's very detailed about Ken's life and Ken's history. He was born in 1914. He passed away in 1988. He was a world-renowned leather worker and a world-renowned magician. I think that's just outstanding. So if you've never heard of Ken before, that's the guy right there. He performed with his wife, and you know what? I still think the book is a great read. Pick it up, take a look at it. I think you will enjoy it. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate you very much. Please comment down below. Please subscribe if you've not done so already. Have a great day. Take care.